My name is Morten Lauridsen. I'm a distinguished professor of composition at the Thornton School of Music at the University of Southern California. I've been associated with this university both as a student and a faculty for now 52 years. And I'm happy to talk with you today. Growing up in Portland, Oregon, and being taught in a high school that had a very, very fine music program. I played in the band, and they had a great choir as well. I also sang in my church choir. Much of my family comes from the Seattle area. And an aunt and uncle had bought a property on a very remote island in the San Juan Islands, north of Seattle, near the Canadian border. And this was on an island where, at that particular time, there were only 11 people on this island. There's no electricity, no running water. I mean, it was the frontier, and it was so beautiful. It was so peaceful and serenity. And I would go there in the summer times. My aunt would take me there, partly to get out of a very abusive situation at home that I experienced and my brother experienced. And so when I went to Waldron Island, here's this pristine place where I felt peaceful. And I was struck by the beauty of the place and the serenity and the bird life and the quietness and the waves. I still carry around that Danish gene in me that says I have to be in an island. I have to be near water. My body changes when I'm near water. So I had that experience, and I would go up there in the summer times, and then later on when they sold their place, I bought this abandoned general store on the waterfront, constructed by a fellow named Roy Crumb. So they called it Crumb's Castle because it had crenellated roof line on the top. And it had fallen apart and been abandoned for 25 years, and I bought it simply to get back on Waldron Island on the waterfront after my aunt and uncle had sold their place. And of course I moved in there with a $50 piano on which I wrote Magnum Mysterium and Lux Eterna and other things by candlelight for the most part, on a junky old piano in a place that was just essentially a shack. What? I'm sitting next to the water. I'm looking west to Canada. It is pristine beauty, and it is quietness. And I have found that I do my best work in that situation. And I urge everybody to try and think about that concept in their own life. We are, especially these days, inundated by distractions of all kinds. These distractions are distracting you from yourself. You're losing touch with yourself. And I think I learned that on that Lookout Tower all those years ago, up there for 10 weeks. Dig deep into yourself. What do you really need in your life? I need music in my life. That's it. I'm going to get off this tower and I'm going to go back to Whitty and get with it. And as a composer on this island, in this shack with a crummy piano, reading texts, and as you know, I read poetry every single day. I have taught classes for decades here at this university, and each one of them I begin with a poem. It takes us up a peg or two every single time for a whole variety of reasons, which I talk about at length in my lectures. But it changes you, and we learn so much from poetry, and of course as a composer, I rely upon words like this to inspire my music. So I'm able to sit in this shack and hear the lapping of the waves and go down deep and write pieces such as the Lux Eterna on themes of illumination, or it's where I began the Robert Graves poems on winter, and all of the myriad thematic possibilities of that subject, and the contrast between life and death and light and dark and cold and warm and all this kind of stuff that Graves knew so beautifully and wrote about so elegantly in his poems that I then set to music. But this is it. So I go down there and I don't have these other distractions. And I'm able to go down deeply and contemplate and reach down very, very deeply and not have the distractions that take me away from my art. And I advise everybody to think about that concept and find a place where you can do this.